a proactive, goal oriented professional with extensive experience in the automation or embedded software industry with specialized projects. She has an unrelenting passion to constantly develop her skills and grow professionally. She is highly effective at engaging people across organizational functions and working through teams to achieve the shared objectives. She is passionate about learning new technologies and languages, strong presentation and communication skills, teamwork and leadership qualities, attention to details, and quick learner. Loves interacting with people and traveling. Let us learn more about Pratima Kadari's journey and her insights on open source software.
Hello, hi there. Welcome to the Guiding Voice podcast series, the Guiding Voice for a Better Future. This podcast is to help professional students, IT employees, and entrepreneurs to shape their careers. Dear listeners, in every episode, we interact with industry experts or thought leaders or coaches or academicians across the globe to drive some insightful conversations that will help each one of you learn great things. Also, we share an interesting trivia or a fun fact about the IT world or technology towards the end. So stay tuned till the end. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is your host Navin Samala and with my co-host Sudhakar Naganla. So we have a cumulative 40 years of rich and diverse experience in IT industry, and we are here on a mission to shape the lives and careers of millions across the globe. So folks, today we are going to discuss a topic getting started with open source as a beginner. And we're pleased to have Pratima as part of TGV in shaping the lives and careers of millions across the globe.
Pratima, welcome to TGV.
Thank you, Navin sir and Sudhakar sir, for inviting me to join your podcast. I'm truly honored and grateful for being for today's session. Looking forward to a conversation.
Excellent. So, Pratima, let us talk about your career. You are working as a freelancer. What are the top three skills that you acquired that helped you in your professional journey?
My top three skills would be on embedded C, Python, and Internet of Things. My career journey started with my specialization in embedded systems. That was my turning point for being an intern to embedded engineer and from there to a research and development engineer. And that role instantly made me more curious on developing solutions for the real-time problems. That's how I got into this field of embedded journey. And from there, I had taken a leap into my open source. So this is how I get connected with people and move forward.
So, embedded systems, R&D engineer, Python, solutions to real life problem. In short span, you covered almost the breadth and depth of the whole ecosystem, I would say. So, Pratima, coming back to the topic about open system or open source software, how do you define an open source software?
Open source software is nothing but a software like a code which is publicly available to use or modify. So like anyone can inspect, update or enhance the code in an open source project. It doesn't have to be a staff member or person who has been a part of that project. It's just a way to make difference and impact people around the society for better benefits. So like we have various open source projects under different kinds of licenses like MIT or Mozilla or kind of GNU or BSD kind of licenses. But I strongly feel that like small lines of code is very worth more than reading 1,000 or 500 pages of book because that's how you get a practical exposure and working in real-time solutions. It helps in picking up the great practices to follow while working on coding and also noticing about how programmers who develop the real-time solutions and bring it effectively to the market. Along with that, we also have many open source projects, open source softwares available online, like especially the most prominent ones being Linux, Android, Mozilla, Chromium, or many kind of things. So it's like we don't know that those things, those kind of open source softwares exist, but we use it every single day without being aware of it. So this is a kind of a journey which is enhancing as well as enriching to make it more better, living into a better developer and a better person.
That's amazing. In fact, that was a profound thought that you shared. Writing a simple line of code is much more useful than reading a whole book because it gives real time experience. I think that's a very big key takeaway for anybody who is actually inspiring to get into the IT development side. Thank you for sharing. And you touched upon a couple of examples like Mozilla, Linux, and the most popular Android, right? So
And
these are all very good open source software. Now, for the benefit of the audience, especially those who are from the early career experience or those who are still in their student journey, can you highlight the difference between open source and COTS, that is commercially off the shelf software?
okay, so the differences like commercial objects of it depends on purely on the licenses they have been embarked with. So for commercially softwares, like there won't be any prominent licenses. They will be having a certain features like which keeps in effective of the things like we don't need external involvement of any contributors or any persons who wants to get involved or get into the practices of the open source software. So that's completely it's a private domain. It's a private journey and it's confined to one space. Like only the persons who are part of that particular project can work on it. But open source is applicable for everywhere. Anywhere from around the world can work on those kind of projects and get involved. And they also can get better using the experiences and real time coding practices they get to know through indulging in those kind of projects.
Great. So when it comes to these commercial licenses, these are not permanent, and that is something developed in-house by the company that is selling the software. Whereas open source, anybody around the world who are really passionate to make a difference, they can contribute. Very well summarized. Let me bring you another question. In case if I'm interested to contribute to open source, okay. First of all, there is a question like, why should I contribute to open source? How does it help me?
So it's like any project or any software, it's not a single person job. It's like many people get involved, many people get into the exposure, they develop more features and upgradations to make it in better versions in upcoming futures. It's not like just a one coded person jobs and one coded project that it's once it's done, it's up into the market and it's all closed. So it's like a constant upgradation. It's like a never-ending journey, which makes people's life more easier through the objects, through the projects or softwares. So main thing that I would prefer it's like gaining a superpower to be involved and impact many lives. And along with being a person who creates this kind of impact, it also makes you become a better developer. You can be a good mentor. You can gain leadership and the team players qualifications. Along with that, we also being an open source coder, what I have gained through this kind of softwares is the more you improve, the more you adding some kind of frameworks or libraries to that particular projects, you get better with your documentation or fixing bugs. You can add up your own features. It's like playing with your coding strings and the practical knowledge you gain through involving in those kind of tools and everything. So that's like it makes you stand out of the crowd and also get more beneficial in the to and fro manner. It's not like the one person beneficial kind of thing. A person who uses it gets benefited. A person who gives it gets benefited. It's like a complete life cycle. And also along with that, there's an opportunity to make various developers who collaborate in for work experience or getting the projects done in a more standable fashion and completely like it's not a one-person job, but it's like a community. It's totally involved in making things better and making projects shine, and also at the same time adding a difference to others in the particular domain or in that particular field according to the categories.
So, Pratima, that is a great summary. You talked about the perspectives from both the sides. So, from the developer standpoint, you talked about the advantages of working with new frameworks, contributing to the new libraries. The other key point that you talked about is documentation, because you would need to rely heavily on documentation, because if you are working from two different parts of the world, you never talk to each other. The document is something that you would depend heavily on. That is from the developer standpoint. And from the consumer standpoint, it is not a single person job and takes an army to build something that is robust, right? And you talked about the more features to be developed, the constant evolution. Amazing. So now you convinced me that I should contribute to open source. But the next question is, what are the prerequisites before I start contributing? What are the skills that I, as a contributor, should have so that I can consume and also I can contribute?
Okay, so any open source contribution, the first main priority thing is you need to read or write a code. That's how you can get involved into the development factor. So you can start with any kind of programming language you're comfortable with, and later you can update your skills more according to the project requirements or whatever is needed. It's not like just a programming kind of thing, but you can also help people with documentation and translation, which doesn't require any programming but provide a good version of how a project can be developed. It's like to be like a outline or workflow kind of steps where you know how to involve in a particular open source project. And the main important thing along with the programming language or knowing the coding concepts is we have to be familiarized with version control systems. That's where the larger projects comes into the domain. It's like saving all the changes in one particular place so that you can look back later, or you can release up to, you can release or add up your new upgradations or features to be produced into the market. Along with that, it's like we have GitHub. It's like a complete trending kind of future. It involves more commercial and non-commercial projects. And Git is like a version control system, and GitHub is a platform which uses the version control systems to get things work in place and make it more hostedly and in a manner that it's effectively used by the public to add up their contributions. And not only that, it's like a basic kind of tools like GitHub and programming. So these two are the main prerequisites to get into the open source contribution. It's not like purely into coding, but also into getting into the document practices and also getting involved as a contributor to the version kind of projects.
So the key two aspects that I could take away is one is ensure that the version control is proper and save the changes into one place so that it becomes easier for you to follow the changes that you made. Second, because the same contribution will be utilized and modified by other people as well, the documentation should always be current and accurate to what are the changes that you made. Amazing. So now you convinced me that I should contribute. Yes. Now let us get into the next step. How to get indulged in these contributions into open source community.
The main platform to get indulged into open source contribution, I would mostly prefer GitHub. Through GitHub, you can involve in various number of projects unless it's made public. So all of the projects that are made public accept contributions, and whatever it is, it's a good way to start your open source journey. And along with that, there's a place like you can look into the GitHub. You can put up your projects. You can open source your very own projects. That not only adds your value to your project, but also helps other developers to collaborate and come across your projects and to be familiarized with the projects you have been built across the world. And other than that, it's not like not many people as a beginner are not familiar with kind of GitHub. It's kind of a new term for the persons to get involved. I mean, bringing up their very own open source projects is kind of daunting and difficult to put it across. So along with that, it's like to begin with a journey, you can start by contributing to small issues. You can find the beginner-friendly issues. There are many various websites or sources you can get to know all about all the beginner-friendly issues of the existing projects that are being hosted on GitHub. Like you can use 24 pull requests up for grabs, Hacktoberfest, first timers only, your first PR, code triage, and many more alternatives. Along with that, you also have a beginner-friendly kind of labels to be used so that you can know the kind of beginner-friendly issues that are available on GitHub. Like you can use good first issues or first timers or kind of thing. And the main problem here is how to know that you are contributing to an open source project. It's like you can find out the projects or organizations that you're that are looking forward for the contributions. Along with that, you can go to the documentation and see if they're accepting the first timer issues or if they're looking forward for contributions. Because the more active the repository is, the more likely it is to accept their contributions. It's not like you just put up your contribution and your efforts shouldn't go wasted. It's like a mutual journey. Along with that, there are many communities that have been followed up to complete their open source projects. They have been hosting various communities across the Discord or Slack kind of domains so that people get introduced into this kind of GitHub journey and also gain help from others. It's like a community where people come in and help each other in knowing what kind of contributions one can prefer based on the tech stacks they belong to. It's like once you get to the complete workflow of all how the contributions are being produced, you can also get involved into various open source programs. You can join in various open source programs and get familiarized with more real-time topics or the projects you can work extensively with. So it's like a journey completely from finding the most beginner friendly issues to getting involved in open source programs, from there to getting into the more realistic projects or the firm based company organization open source projects. That's like you have to start small from somewhere or the other. Starting small is always best. It's not like you don't have to disappoint or degrade yourself. Like if you haven't, haven't have any familiarity knowledge on programming language, it can start with some documentation as well. So that's completely a never-ending process. So that's how you evolve yourself, how you get better, and how you how you get in. Impressed by the open source project. I mean, how satisfied or how morality you feel of the contributions you provide to the other open source projects or the open source organizations. It's like getting better. It's like showing your own identity and reflecting it on other projects. So it's like you have your name always tagged on other projects.
You have brought in a lot of interesting perspectives. First of all, using GitHub, people can engage in public programs. And for those who are starting afresh or starting now, there are certain options wherein they can start as a small beginner, start by solving some beginner friendly issues and all. And you have mentioned a couple of tags. So for the benefit of our audience, we will share all the references like GitHub as well as the tags that to be used. In fact, you can right away refer to the show notes and make the best use of suggestions provided by Pratima. So, Pratima, now you have touched upon why somebody should contribute to open source and what are various platforms that are available and how to get involved. Can you also shed some light around what are the open source programs somebody can get into?
Yeah, there are many open source projects that one can participate in, like Google Summer of Code, MLH Fellowship, Outreach, Dale Gale Summer of Code, Hacktoberfest, Let's Grow More, DevIncept. There are many lots of programs. Like currently the open source is trending. Like there are lots of programs you can get involved in. Just have to make sure that you stay alerted with your notifications. You can join in for that. You can join in some communities wherein they provide information of particular open source programs or kind of contests that are being eligible. That are being available for you to get enrolled, so that you get more information and stay updated to those kind of programs. So it's like how active you are being in getting involved and how enthusiastic you are being in following up all these kind of things. So it's like an easy journey. Yeah, it's like how easy you make it for yourself.
So, Pratima, this has been a fantastic conversation with lot of insights and lot of actions, okay, which somebody can take. In fact, it has been one of the most beneficial episodes, I would say. And probably let's add some spice to this episode by asking you a few interesting rapid fire questions. So, wherein you can answer to me very crisply, probably in 2 to 3 words or maximum one phrase. In case if you are ready, let's get started. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Perfect. So let me fire the first bullet out of the rapid fire. What is your favorite failure, Pratima?
My favorite failure is driving. Driving tops the list. So that's my favorite failure. I'm looking to overcome it and drive up someday. So yeah, that's main criteria. Like
Wish you all the best. And in fact,
yeah,
if you can learn to drive in on Hyderabad roads, you can drive anywhere
that's
in the
kind
world.
of tough. Yeah, but I'll manage it. I'll try to overcome it.
Wish you all the best.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So moving on to my next question out of rapid fire. What, according to you, was the worst invention of the last 50 years?
Deep faking, like it's like a software where you print one person face over another. It's like making someone look like someone who isn't he was. So it's like it brings a hell lot of pain to society. So that's the most worst invention and the most scariest thing for persons to get into lots of trouble in future generations. So that's the worst invention.
That's quite interesting. I'm going to do a further research on that. Let me move on to the next question. How do you describe yourself in just 2 words?
My two words would be optimistic and easygoing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. I've been following you for quite a long time on LinkedIn and all. I really appreciate all the efforts that you're putting in for the benefit of the larger community out there. And I see that optimism aspect very much in you. Keep going.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So moving on to my next question. If a movie is planned about you, what would be the genre and the title?
Movies planned about me, it would be something related to traveling, like a journey, say like moving on with a slow traveling, just exploring countries, going through various horizons and everything. So it's completely related to travel. So that's something which I love doing it, which I love most. Like it's like being myself, being what I am, where I'm not judged and everywhere. So yeah, that's my comfort zone.
And what is the title of that movie?
Title, that could be something like going round the clock or something that which never like lost in maps.
I love that lost in maps, in fact. Wonderful. So let me fire the last bullet out of the rapid fire. Okay. If you are given unlimited budget and unlimited resources, what product would you develop?
Main need of the resource currently is main predominant issue which is being prevalent around across all the world is the hunger. So I would like to develop a project that solves world's hunger. Like most people, whatever they do, right or wrong, it's only to fill up their tummy or to survive. So that's the main predominant issue I would be looking for work on, especially if I have got unlimited budget or resources. So that's kind of big thing.
Such a noble thought. In fact, I have to really appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. Very noble thought, and I wish you were given unlimited budget and
Yeah,
resources, and let us fulfill that particular thing.
yeah, hopefully.
Wonderful. So that was an amazing rapid fire round, Pratima. It has been fantastic, and thank you for being yourself and sharing those thoughts so candidly. With that, let me transition the session back to Sudhakar for the mainstream.
Thank you, Naveen and Pratima. Amazing answers from
Thank
noble cause of solving the hunger to learning the driving to lost in the maps. I think we should register this movie name on our name. You never know, Naveen. One day TGV can sponsor this movie and with Pratima's biography.
Sure, I would love to join in for that. I'm always in for travel. Yeah.
So, Pratima, this has been an amazing conversation. One final question for this session. What
Okay.
will be your one piece of suggestion for those who want to contribute and who want to learn more from open source beginners standpoint? What will be your one piece?
First thing is, it all comes from within themselves. You have to be your own. So you have to take your initiative. You have to take your lead. You have to evaluate yourself, like how far you have been gone through. I mean, how far your journey is going through. Show some curiosity to learn. Communicate clearly. Set up your some goals, like small time goals, which gives inbuilt satisfaction that you have achieved some goal. You have been moved into a next phase, and the work should speak for you. Be slow, but show your credibility and approach with real time solutions so that it's beneficial for everyone around the society.
Show your credibility, have smaller goals, show the progress, and communicate clearly. Amazing. Pratima, I'm sure our audience are gonna love every bit of this conversation, especially for those who are in the early stages of their career or final stages of their academics. I'm sure this conversation is going to be beneficial to full extent, and each bit of this conversation is going to benefit them in their long-term goal. Thank you so much for joining us today. It is indeed great to have this conversation with you on open source software, but life at large. Really appreciate you taking time for us, Pratima. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me and waiting at least for a 1 week kind of schedule. So you had to wait long. So glad that we could finish this session today. So I'm happy to be joining in and taking part in this podcast. Thank you for this opportunity.
All right. It was a pleasure hosting you, and thank you so much once again for being part of TGV's journey in shaping the lives and careers of millions across the globe.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. So, with that being said, let's move on to the trivia segment of today's episode. And, folks, today's trivia is about video games. Do you know surgeons who grew up playing video games make 37% fewer mistakes? And what is the reason? because their fingers are very active, pressing the D-pad or the joystick or whatever the device that they use to play the games. And same is the case with those surgeons who eat food with their fingers directly without using fork and spoons. And in fact, there was a study done at a management university to understand why surgeons based out of India are so precisely working on surgeries with minimal to zero mistakes. Interesting, isn't it?